Well, hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Evoke cast. My name is Dr. Andy Reid. I'm one of the coaches with Evoke Endurance, and I'll be your host today. And it gives me great pleasure today to introduce you to one of my coaching clients, David Ayala. He's a he's a name that maybe many of you don't recognize. He flies under the radar a little bit. But recently, David put his name firmly on the ultra running map when he finished fourth place in the Hardrock 100 endurance run in Colorado, which is an absolutely outstanding result. And the Hardrock is widely regarded, for those of you that don't know, as one of the toughest 100-mile races on the planet. Not only did David finish fourth, but he posted the third fastest time by an American in that counterclockwise direction, I think, finishing in 24 hours and 22 minutes. I had the pleasure to work with David as his coach in his lead up to Hard Rock. So today I thought it'd be a lot of fun to chat with David on the podcast about his life in Bozeman, his running history, sporting background, dig into some of his training for the Hard Rock race, and talk about how the race went. So welcome to the podcast, David.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, and thanks for a season of coaching. That was extraordinary.
So maybe to start, David, I imagine a lot of people don't know much about you. So maybe give us a little rundown. Who's David
Yeah,
Ayala? Tell
sure.
us.
Yeah. I grew up in southern Utah in the desert there, just outside of Zion, and spent a lot of time kind of scrambling around mountains, not so much running, maybe. Um, and I guess now I live in Bozeman, Montana. I've been here for a little over a decade. Um, and I started running, like signing up for races when I moved here. I certainly ran a lot leading up to this, but started racing when I moved here, and that's been pretty fun. My heart really is in the mix of running and scrambling, and so yeah, any opportunity to do that, I jump on it. Um, yeah, I do a bunch of routes, some of which are posted as FKTs. Um, and I think my favorite along those lines are these routes that involve a lot of navigation, nighttime travel, possibly um, multi-day, a lot of scrambling and stuff like that. I love it. I love uh, that way of using running adjacent fitness for that kind of activity. It just is fantastic. I feel so alive and activated doing that.
Yeah. So very much a mountain athlete, a mountain
Yeah,
runner. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you run any cross country or track and field in school, college, that kind of stuff?
Uh, well, I ran marathons with my mom and my dad,
Yeah.
starting when I was like 13 or 14 or something. And I did that every year through like high school and stuff. And my little I grew up, in this little town, and they needed a quorum, a critical mass of people doing cross country to make it to state, which they had never done. And so the coach recruited me to be on cross country. So I was on this the varsity cross country team, and I showed
Yeah.
up for the minimal number of meets in order to make it to state, and really got my butt kicked. So yeah, I mean, I guess I ran cross country, but not really. My
Yeah.
teammates they did pretty well out there.
Yeah. And how did you get into running ultras and 100 milers, I guess specifically, because that seems to be
Right.
your forte.
Yeah. Well, my dad ran a marathon when I was a kid and then wrote a story about it, and it was
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious. My mom and I read the story out loud, and we were like rolling on the floor, gut laughing. He finished I don't know, in like 6.5 hours or maybe closer to 7 or something. And it
Yeah.
was just so funny. So that inspired my mom and I to sign up for a marathon together, and we trained and we ran it together. And I got cramps, which maybe we'll talk about at mile 18 when I was maybe 14 years old or something. And
Yeah.
I was waiting for my mom, in during the race because I thought maybe she could help me with the cramps, and she got to me and was like, "Good luck, Dave," and just kept going. So she beat me in that first one, and then we ran a marathon, the St. George Marathon, together every year.
Yeah.
And then as a way to hang out with my dad, I would run marathons with him. So it's just kind of like a latent part of my life. It's not like I really seriously trained for it. Um, but I loved scrambling, and I went into the Sierras a lot as a graduate student and scrambled and did winter, like all season activities there. And yeah, I don't know. You know, for example, in grad school, I found that I had a free weekend and I just like ran from where I was in grad school to the coast, and it was about 40 something miles. And I was like, I think that was the farthest I've run. And it gradually grew from there. Um,
Yeah.
I thought that it was a indulgent and not very healthy habit. So when I was 30, I planned a route through Death Valley and then up to the base of Whitney. Not the Badwater route. This was like an
Yeah.
off-trail route. Invited a
Okay.
lot of friends and a lot of support crew, and we set out as this like little posse and had a great time in the Mojave Run, we called it. And
Yeah.
it was 97 miles. I thought that would be a great number, uh, just so I never would know for the rest of my life if I could do 100. And that was it. That was going to be the end of my running, and that turned out to be more like the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, um, yeah, and then like I said, once I moved to Bozeman, then I started to sign up for races for realsies and
Yeah.
compete and stuff.
That's a great story about your
Yeah,
dad writing about the marathon.
yeah.
Can we read that anywhere? Is it online? I guess there was no such
I
social
I
media at that time.
yeah, I doubt it.
No.
Yeah, this might
Okay.
have been a handwritten letter kind of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what was your first ultra America? Well, first 100 miler. Let's jump into the 100 milers.
I did the Wasatch 100 in 2015,
Yeah.
and yeah, I got major cramps in the heat. Totally wasn't prepared for heat at Lambs Canyon around mile 55 and just laid there and dropped back to about 35th place. And then had some extraordinary pacers, my partner Anna, my dear friend Tim, and ended up finishing fourth in this like psychedelic finish of running just super fast. There was sub 7 minute mile pace for the last couple miles. It was amazing. So that was
Incredible.
2015. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've gone on to race. I think I was looking at your ultra sign up. For those of you who are interested, go take a look at David's ultra sign up, and you'll see the kind of caliber of athlete he is. You've I think almost everything that I saw on there was a podium. There were a couple that weren't, but definitely a lot of podiums on there. Mostly up in kind of Montana, Wyoming area.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, as a amateur runner, it just makes a lot more sense to me to do local races to just not fly to a race.
Yeah,
Uh, and so yeah, so the outcome of that is a lot of these regional runs. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Fun fact, actually, David. The first time I ever met you was at the I Am Tough 100 in Idaho a number of years ago. Back when I was a little bit faster than I am now. And actually, you and I went 1-2. David beat me by a huge margin, hours and hours. In fact, I think by the time I finished and I was in second place, you'd probably been asleep for 3 or 4 hours. I think you'd even left. So that was the first time I ever came across David Ayala. Yeah. So
My mom
you also
remembers.
yeah. You also mentioned some FKTs there. Tell
Yeah.
us some of the FKTs you've
Yeah,
attempted.
yeah. This kind of you know, I wasn't aware of these, but when I heard about them, it's like, yes, I love that injection of a little bit of a competitive element into
Yeah,
these more adventurous scrambles and stuff. Uh, and so, but at the same time, I thought I wanted to be develop my own kind of etiquette and practice around the FKT stuff. You know,
yeah,
like in a sense, I could just draw a line from here to my house and submit it as an FKT, make a compelling case, and maybe it gets approved. And now I have the fastest uh, time between my office and my house. It just seemed like there's a lot of litter happening out there, and so
Yeah.
I like this idea of setting an intention to do an FKT, like 6 months out to undergo a training, uh, a phase of training, much like doing a 100-mile race. But what's interesting there is part of that training is memorizing a route, practicing really weird fueling strategies so that you can carry as little food as possible, as little weight as possible, go
Yeah.
for multiple days. And that kind of headspace it's its own kind of training that I really liked. And then so I did that with the Wind River High Route that traverses the crest of the Wind River. It's about 100 miles. Um,
Yeah.
and like over glaciers, and it's very adventurous. It's great. And then the Sierra High Route, and then Gabe Joya's uh, ran a faster Wind River High Route than me, so I went back and did it again, and that yeah, and then um, yeah, the Sierra High Route was about 4 days. Um, this Wind River High Route's about a day and a half. Uh,
Yeah.
the Montana 12ers route was about 3 days. The Crest of the Tetons was about a day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
the Utah 13ers was about a day.
yeah.
Yeah,
Are
stuff
these
like that. What's
supported,
that?
or are they
They're all unsupported. I think
all unsupported? Yeah. Yeah.
that's what appeals to me.
So you
Yeah.
definitely you like the competition. I'm sensing
Yeah,
you like
yeah. I think that's
yeah.
I you know I I believe that competition in its best is a oblique way of collaborating. Like if I'm competing with somebody, even in these contexts of FKTs where I'm competing against the time that was set 4 years ago,
Mhm.
um, I have such a stronger experience because I'm competing with this person, and I push myself and how to have an overall better time and better performance outcomes and stuff through competition. I'm so happy for that. Uh,
Yeah.
I ran Bighorn 100 a few years ago, and Jeff Browning was doing it, and we have some kinship. He lived here in Bozeman for a bit,
Mhm.
but also we had some intense arguments about vegan versus meat eating, and I thought it would be just so great to beat Jeff and prove once and for all to the world, not that anybody's watching, which which
Which
type of diet is
yeah.
better.
So
And
yeah, so is carnivore better than vegan? Which
well, yeah, that was that was what was on the line. I liked to
right.
believe, and then it turned out Seth Swanson showed up. I wasn't expecting that, and I had been chasing his records for a while, and we went out and just totally blew each other up, and then freaking Jeff just calmly tromped on by, and
Yeah.
he beat me by a couple minutes, and
Yeah.
that was so fun. That whole day was just so fun because of this like competitive element. We were all trashing each other, and
Yeah.
uh, it was good time. So I
The
like.
battle of the diets. I love it. Yeah. So David, tell us a little bit about your work. You are a math professor, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Looks like you're
yeah.
sitting in the classroom right now.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I'm a math professor. I study math that's motivated by and has applications to theoretical physics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's what you do is far too complicated for somebody like me, but yeah, are you able to kind of tell us what you do in a nutshell? What
I can give it
area?
a quick go. So uh, yeah, I mean, there was a conference over 100 years ago where Schrodinger announced Schrodinger's equation. It was this equation that would uh, maybe explain all these weird observations in quantum mechanics. And as I understand it, it was just announced that, here you go, world, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
um, immediately people realized that for the first time there could be a theoretical explanation of why matter is discrete, of why the basic building blocks of matter, atoms, why there's not like a 1.5 atom, why is there
Yes.
hydrogen and then helium? Uh, and not only that, but explain why they're organized as the periodic table, that strange pattern for how matter is organized.
Yeah.
Uh, Finally, there was at least an approach for explaining that with a mathematical model. And indeed, people set out to do that, and they solved what's called the atom. They solved the hydrogen atom to explain the orbitals of electrons, etc. And that solution had everything to do with the fact that the way electrons move around an atom is spherically symmetric. Um, so now that was that, and that was about 100 years ago. And more recently, it's people have figured out how to confine fermions, electrons, to two-dimensional substrates. So the way electrons operate and interact when confined to two dimensions, you lose that spherical symmetry. And
Mhm.
so there's a new organization of matter, at least matter that's two-dimensionally confined. And this is relevant because unlike in three dimensions, an electron can have a spin up or spin down. And other than that spin, those two electrons are indistinguishable in every other way, in particular have the same energy. But in two dimensions, it turns out you can have arbitrarily many electrons occupy essentially the same state. And this is one of the foundations, this is one of the premises for quantum computing is, or, in some sense, the chemistry of these two-dimensionally confined electrons. And so there's a bunch of math problems there. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of math that I work on and study.
David, I'm not going to even pretend that I understood 1/10 of what you were just telling me there, but
Well, maybe someone out there does, and I'll bet you
that
understand.
will be that will definitely be somebody listening who gets it.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I have to admit when I first spoke to you after the Hard Rock lottery in December, I imagined that a mathematician would be incredibly data driven.
Mm.
I expected that you would love the training data, love the numbers. I expected somebody who would have a very, very analytical approach to his training, to racing and running, but that really was not the case, was it? David didn't actually even own a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a funny conversation. I was like, tell me about your training, David, and can you send me your Garmin files or your heart rate data? And you really didn't have any, did you?
None. Yeah. I've never kept track of that. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I think you wrote down, I think you took a snapshot of a piece of paper that had, Monday 15 miles, Tuesday 20 miles.
Yeah. I wrote that just for you,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, so I mean, obviously that changed quite a lot when you and I started working together, but clearly that kind of simple approach has been very effective for you up till this point. Uh,
Yeah. Uh,
are you purposely shunning the numbers and the data, or is this just how
well, I a little bit purposely, but more like because it's easier and I'm lazy. I really think of myself as an amateur athlete, and I think that's an identity I try to hold. Um, and I'm a professional mathematician, you know,
Yeah.
uh, an identity that I hold. So that meticulousness, I I'm happy for it to be directed into my mathematical research. Um, and it's not natively interesting to me to
Uh-huh.
track running like that. Um, I think a lot of people can relate how some joy, some joy is lost when really measuring and tabulating
Yes.
metrics and stuff. There's also some joy, as I've learned, of just tracking it as well. Uh,
Mhm.
but the reasons I run are not to be the best runner in the world or to even perform at my peak, as opposed to have a just fantastic experience while running. And then when I'm not running, I really move my attention to other places.
Yes. Yeah, there's something incredibly joyful, I guess, about the simplicity of running
Yeah,
without all the gizmos and gadgets. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
super cool. So obviously, clearly you have a ton of talent. Did you have any kind of training philosophy leading into Hardrock, or was it just see how I feel on the day and go out and go for a run, or was there any
Oh
kind of
yeah.
specific intent to your training before we
Yeah,
started?
for sure. I had read several books. The most uh, significant to my memory is Elkes's The Lore of Running. I think I read that cover to cover. I read The Uphill Athlete. I read Jack Daniels's book, and some other folks. So I was informed about these different about the physiology and coaching practices and stuff, and I definitely incorporated that pretty seriously into my own running practice. And like, for example, I remember a season retraining my stride to make a different stride, my natural one. um,
Yep.
and that I was just stunned that that even worked. um, yeah. And then I was always eager to understand better different fueling practices. And so I'd
Ah,
experimented early season and then give it a go throughout the season and kind of take mental notes about how that went. Uh,
yeah. Yeah,
so
I'm interested in your fueling strategy because we talked about this a little bit. And in fact, I had you talk to a nutritionist at one point, but
yeah,
I think you were very much following a Jeff Browning-esque, shall we say, kind of approach, kind of a high fat, low carb
big
approach,
time.
particularly for these, long multi-day FKT attempts. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. As much fat as possible. I would make these little, like I would carry essentially coconut fat with some salt in it. And
Yeah.
you know, like calorie to weight ratio is really good for that. So
Yes.
that appealed to me. I also, um, liked what I was reading about fat adaptation for endurance stuff. And,
Hmm.
I was like I remember, doing some, uh, about 40-mile things without eating anything as a way to see what that was like. And I thought that was advantageous to be able to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
Mostly for like having incredible days in the mountains and carrying like zero backpack, like a full day in the back in the mountains with just shorts on and stuff in my
Yes.
pockets, that appealed
Yes.
to me so much. And I was preoccupied by that maybe more than just like performances in races. So
Yes. Yeah. Did,
but
did you have
then
any? Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, by all means.
I was going to say, did you have any trouble bonking in race, in race situations, running
I,
out of fuel?
the marathons that I did in my teens and 20s taught me about bonking, and yeah, and then I would say I didn't really do much. Like bonking wasn't really a thing for me once I started to do this more fat adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, how times have changed, eh? Now it's all
yeah,
120 an
yeah.
hour.
Thanks to you, I read a bunch of literature, and I'm totally sold on the carb thing now. Totally sold. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you got into the you got in Hard Rock is a lottery for those who don't know. So they they have a pile of thousands of names and they draw names out of the hat and you got lucky enough. There's only I think about 140, 145 starters, is it? Something like that.
156 this year, I think.
150.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then you immediately sought out some coaching help. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it was maybe it was arbitrary or maybe Hard Rock deserves um this kind of status in my mind, but I always told myself that if I got into Hard Rock, I would give it everything, unlike previous seasons where I'm largely interested in mountain adventures and then I run races. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to really give it a go, and my partner was really supportive of that as well. And I think
Yes.
it was her who, Anna, suggested that I look into stuff like this.
Yeah.
So I talked to some friends who I knew were uh, like had been using coaching services in one way or another, and honestly, I got I, that sounded pretty cool and quite different from my experiences training, but it seemed like a lot of what was offered is some kind of like accountability, and
Right.
that was not, I didn't feel like I needed or wanted that so much. So yeah, so I talked to a couple of folks, and so you, Andy, because you are a like a doctor,
Yes.
that was gold, like you could send me, like you sent me some podcasts on physiology and papers
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and that was the it wasn't like, who do I want to coach me? It was like, do I want to be coached? And if so, what
Yeah.
does that look like? And so I was very interested in just understanding how muscle contraction works and
Yeah.
stuff. And so you sent me a handful of resources, which were awesome. And then there was so much more. Like I would look up the citations of those, and I ended up this was an incredible experience for me, though. Um, I don't know. I'm a little embarrassed. Like well, I got a subscription to two different AI large language models, uh,
Yes.
and one
You
of them
told.
had an audio, like a two-way audio communication mode, and I would upload PDFs of some of these like scientific articles on electron transport chain or lactate shuttle, and
Yes.
ask it to read it to me at three times the normal pace, and it would start to give me summaries. And I trained it, I worked with it to literally to read it verbatim, and then I would have it stop and pause and read it at like 0.5 speed so I could like understand this. I'm no expert. I'd have it stop and then ask a definition of one word or another,
Yes.
and then it would tell me that definition, then I'd ask it to resume. And this was all while
Incredible.
running in the nighttime in the mountains around here. It was so weird. It was so weird, but I learned so much, and that was really transformative. I mean, the way I think about running and training is completely different after this overall that like coaching experience, and mostly triggered by the leads that you would give to me.
Yes.
So
For the listeners, David actually came up to where I live, came to Canmore on a ski trip um, early part of last year, and so so we met up. We went for a beer in the pub, and we ended up talking about mitochondrial bioenergetics, as I remember, which was one of the most bizarre conversations I've ever had in the pub. But just kind of highlights what you
well,
were saying there. So that's incredible. So
yeah,
yeah, so that's the analytical part of
right.
David, right? Yeah, super cool. So maybe let's dig into your training a little bit for Hardrock. What what was different about it? I can speak to this from my
Yeah,
end, but I'm kind of
yeah.
interested in what you
Okay.
thought. Yeah.
Well, I think everything. I mean, uh, yeah, like I think everything was different. Um, I guess there was a little bit less whimsical joy. Not to start, not to lead with that. Like, less running by feel,
Yes.
and more having a plan for the week. And I
Yeah.
could kind of like see, you know, this weekend I'll do a bunch of vertical, and I think that's pretty fun. Uh,
Yeah.
and now is like slow running. And I don't know, I don't think I ever really did that really kind of slow running with an eye on some like, harder, longer push later in the week. Just
Yeah.
that kind of disparity
Yes.
between
Yeah.
the
More
intensity.
a bit more polarized, I guess I would say.
Yeah, that was definitely new for me. Um, I yeah, I eating carbs while training.
Yes.
Was totally new. I mean, previously I ate nothing. Um, yeah, that was pretty new. Doing strength work in a gym. I had never done that before.
Yes.
That was new. We were doing speed work, and speed work is something I had done before. Um, but this was fit into a larger training arc. And so
Yeah.
it served a certain function, I think, and I kind of trusted you on what that function was. Um,
Yeah.
it served a larger function compared to the speed work I had been doing was just like the Tuesday night track group gathers here, and depending on
Yeah.
who show up, I bust it out as hard as possible, and that's just fun, you know.
Yeah. I actually had the impression early on that I was like, does this guy really buy into what I'm what I'm thinking here, what I'm trying to do? So I don't know if that was actually the case or whether that was just an impression that I got.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of
And
decided
feel free to
to
tell me if you
I
didn't buy it.
decided to just trust that everything, you know,
Yeah.
and that that offloaded a type of thinking about stuff that was pretty interesting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So from my standpoint, after we talked, I figured that David clearly had, lots of natural talent. He had a huge aerobic base. We did a couple of the heart rate drift tests early on. And I remember your second one. The first one, I think we went way too slow. The second one, you were running at 6 minute mile pace and you barely had any drift as well. So you have this huge base, this huge aerobic base, which obviously is key to success in ultra marathons. But I didn't get the sense that you'd done a whole lot of kind of structured intensity. Um, when I looked at your anaerobic threshold as well, it seemed like you had this we didn't actually do a lactate test, but if you were thinking about a lactate curve, you had the kind of, I would say you have the classic kind of ultra runner's lactate curve, like a really long flat curve that just suddenly jumps up at the end. So when I was doing my kind of gap analysis, it was like, okay, where are the low hanging fruit? I think intensity and strength
oh,
were one.
cool.
Raise that right side of the curve, drag everything else up with it. So yeah, I mean it's always a puzzle. How do you make somebody who's already fast and accomplished? How do you make them faster? So that was my thought was okay, a little bit more intensity, maybe less volume than you're used to,
Yeah,
and some strength work in the gym, which clearly the demands of Hardrock. You need good muscular endurance. It's up, down, up, down, up, down the whole day. So that was my kind of approach to
cool.
to
Yeah.
um so I don't know whether you enjoyed those sessions, the speed sessions, whether you enjoyed the gym work, the
Well, I
gym.
got addicted to the speed stuff. You might recall there were these what like six or 6 times 1K.
Yeah,
Uh,
we started at 6 times
eight
1K. We
times
went right
10.
up to 10 by 1K on
Yeah,
the track. And actually, just for I'll just
yeah,
interject here, just for um, I knew we were onto something here. David did 10 times 1,000 meters on the track, and I think your slowest 1 kilometer was 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Your fastest one was 3:02, which was your last one, and they were all basically between 3:02 and 3:08. So really quick, really quick. And I think you said, you know what, I could probably have gone a little harder on those.
yeah. So I was looking forward to the next week, and then I ended up getting sick.
Yes.
You had to explain to me that any one session is not make or break for the long term. But then it was
Yeah.
time to move on away from speed, I didn't quite get that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the most important session is always the next one, is
Yeah,
a
right.
good philosophy. So yeah, so we did a lot. So we did this kind of build. I think we started at 6 by 1K. We built up to 10 by 1K, and then we did some 2K repeats. And actually we started dialing back the pace a little bit just to keep things a bit more aerobic, because clearly as you throw in more and more intensity and things become more and more anaerobic, that does have a negative effect on the aerobic system. So that was the approach with the speed work there. But the thing about speed work is the gains are made fairly quickly. You don't need a huge dose of that stuff. So then we backed off. Yeah, and started to build volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you saying at one point, I feel like I would be doing way more volume than this.
Yeah.
I was training myself, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, especially early on. It was a sharp decline in volume for me.
Yeah.
But then come April, it was pretty much back up there. Or actually, maybe not quite up there in the way of distance, but far exceeded what I've ever done as far as vertical.
Yes. Yeah. And in David's final build into Hardrock, he strung together, I can't remember the exact numbers, but a bunch of near to 100-mile weeks, more than 100 miles,
Mhm.
with 10,000 meters, so 30 plus thousand feet of vertical per week. So really good volumes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember you saying to me at one point, you said, I kind of feel like um I haven't really got into that deep headspace that I
Yeah.
feel like I need to get into. Can you explain that comment?
Yeah.
This is always very interesting to me.
Yeah, like a flow, where I guess a way that I've found to leverage will, um, like long into some event,
Yeah.
whether or not it's a race or just some route that I had identified that I wanted to do that season, is to hold really proximate in my mind um, recent times where I was um, like in a you know kind of uncomfortable state, and yet in a groove, and then I know that you know that last month when I did that, I went for another 4 hours and felt just fine at the end. To like really believe that if I'm feeling some discomfort, um, that it will be fine in 4 hours from now or whatever. And that there's the half-life to that feeling is
Yeah.
is pretty short. Like it dilutes pretty quick, like the first big like hard willful experience of a season. It's just like, wow, like how is this possible? How have I ever been able to do it in the past? Uh,
Yes.
and so that kind of headspace, I feel like is part of the training for me, or that's how it's come
Yeah.
to operate that way. And
I think that's a pretty common
mhm,
feeling for folks who run ultras.
yeah,
The first long run you do, or the first kind of, when you're in that kind of dark headspace, I guess. The first time you go there, like, how the heck do I do this? How have I been able to do this in the past?
yeah, there's all kinds of little techniques, to like look around, to smell things, to listen to things, to see things, to just really get out of my body, um, and to like yeah, to notice what's happening with my thoughts and my mind,
Yeah.
um, and find entertainment in that. Yeah, it takes a little bit of practice. So it's that kind of like flow that I felt like I was wanting some. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you went off and ran like 50 miles that weekend.
Yeah.
You did a 50-mile run in Yellowstone.
Yeah. Right.
Incredible. Well,
Right.
I'm thinking maybe we should. I'm actually going to do an article for the Evoke website where I'll maybe dig
Cool.
into your training a little bit more,
Okay.
go through some of the specifics because there's some other things that we did that I thought were pretty cool, like the uphill weighted efforts. We did a lot
Yeah.
of.
That was very formative for me.
Yeah, yeah. Did you enjoy those sessions?
Tremendously. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, in a strange way, but yeah, I did it at the same exact hill every time, and um, I did a little time trials for myself to and varied my my stride and my form, my movement pattern, how I was polling, alternating versus double polling, like using little crunches versus like arms outstretched,
yeah,
and so just that regular how regular that was with the weight was it kind of yeah, it was very formative, and I set a movement style that seemed really effective for ascending.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's maybe move on to Hardrock itself.
Yeah.
Um, maybe a little bit about the race, because there's probably lots of listeners who really don't know a whole lot about the event. But do you want to maybe just kind of give a quick summary of what the race is, what it's about, where it is, what's involved?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, the Hard Rock, um, I think it stands out to me in its demeanor. It is a precious event. The town, as far as I can tell when I talk to folks, they really appreciate the event there. And I that is certainly a great appeal. Is It's a remote race with not a lot of not a lot of hype. I feel like it's for the runners, not for businesses to flash advertisements at you. Um,
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about it. But then the route itself, it starts in Silverton, Colorado, in southwest Colorado in the San Juan Mountains at elevation about 9,300 feet. Um, and then by mile 10, uh, a everybody has gone up. The route has gone over essentially a 13,000 foot pass that's quite steep ascent and then very steep descent. And then from there it commences into probably the remotest part of the race, where the trail goes through just these rolling hills, where yeah, it's easy to spot moose and elk, um, and wildflowers are everywhere. Um, and then around mile 35 or 40 or so, it goes over Handy's Peak, which is a 14,000 foot summit. Um, and then once it descends from that, then that kind of concludes the remote sections of the race, and then it follows um, uh, a mix of dirt roads, and then some well maintained Forest Service trails, um, into Ouray, which is the lowest point of the race, which is a little less than 8,000 feet, I think, at about halfway through the race. Um, and and then it continues going over several 13,000 foot passes. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and then through some just iconic Colorado
Yeah.
wilderness.
That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is in the San Juan range. So it's 102 miles. There's 33,000 feet of climbing.
right.
I think you climb over 13, 12,000 foot passes in the race. So this is a huge, huge challenge. Yeah. And it's all at altitude, of course. Yeah. So the average altitude of Hard Rock is 11,000 feet. So on that note, we did dabble a little bit with the altitude tent before we went down there, but as I recall, David, you didn't feel great, you didn't sleep well, which is always the issue with these things, and I think you gave up on that fairly quickly, right?
I stuck through it. So a
Okay.
friend of mine here, Mike Wolf, let me borrow this machine, and I did that for about I think 8 or 10 days.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and what you pointed out is I miscalibrated it.
That's
Because
right.
where I live is about 5,000 feet. That needs to be accounted for not in a linear way, but in a sort of exponential way. So
Yes.
when I think the first night I set it, and it turned out that it was, I forget, I don't know, like over 11,000 feet, but
Yeah.
like
I think
yeah,
you were sleeping at like 15,000 feet or something.
yeah, something like that. So I
Yeah.
felt awful at first, but then I dialed it down and it was
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I couldn't recall exactly that. So the idea of using the tent was because you were going down to Silverton for a month prior to the race, and of course you arrive at Silverton, which is 9,000 feet. Um, and if you're going there from a lower altitude, you often feel pretty terrible. So the idea of using the tent was so that you arrived sort of partly acclimated already. Yeah. Do you feel
yeah.
that? Do you feel that was helpful?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what I read, and I maybe actually Julie pointed me to this, is 6 weeks of acclimation.
Yeah.
Um, it can serve well. It's not, that's maybe more than is needed, but so that's why I started the tent before leaving. And yeah, and once I was in Silverton area, I actually camped at 11,000 feet um, every night. And
Yeah.
definitely it was helpful. Looking
Yeah.
at my heart rate uh, from being out there right when I arrived compared to later was a world of difference. I mean, a huge difference. So it was definitely helpful.
Yes. Yeah. And you did the usual, seems to become super popular to do a soft rock. So you
Yeah.
essentially hike the entire course over a few days.
Yep.
You can look at it and see what's involved. How did that go?
It was such a lovely time. It was just such a great experience. I'm lucky enough to have a job with flexibility that allows that.
Yeah.
Um, I did it for 4 days, and I mean, just had a great time outright. Uh, and like I mentioned, looking at my heart rate, um, how it was. Uh, I was going to say operate like it was very static, my heart rate, and it was quite low. Um, and it was pretty intimidating for me to go up some of those passes and see how not responsive my body felt. And then that was validated by my heart rates
Yeah.
staying low. Um,
And this was the first week you were at
yeah,
altitude. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was, yeah, it was a good time. Um,
And I think that strategy of arriving at altitude and just keeping the intensity way down is the way to go. Yeah. And you
yeah,
did that.
if I were to, if anyone here is thinking of doing that, I'd recommend to not carry all of your stuff with you. So I did it as a fast pack, and I essentially didn't use any of the resources at the towns. Just have more control over my food and where I slept and stuff. And the result was that running felt pretty awkward. So it was hard to get a running feel of much of the race. If I were to do it again, I'd probably just like bite the bullet and rent a hotel in Ouray and in Telluride, something like that.
Good luck in Telluride renting a hotel.
Okay, maybe. Well, I'll sleep on the street. I mean,
Yeah.
we have
Well,
benches there
I
too.
think you can. It's just that it'll bankrupt you. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. Okay. So you got there, you go around the course, fast packing, got that done. How did you feel about the hard rock course once you'd
Really
rounded?
intimidated. It was unbelievable for me to think that like not that anyone does that in a day and a half. It was it was a big experience just the fast pack. I it was hard for me to wrap my mind around how to do that quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as you know, as some of the listeners may know, I did hard rock last year before, and after doing my round, the soft rock, I was like, how on
Mm.
earth do you link all that in one big day? But anyway, it seems like you can get it done on the day. So yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
that was really instrumental in me consolidating my imagination around it, though. I took a lot of notes while out there, and then consolidated them afterwards, and then used that to know where I wanted to go out and run sections again. And my
yeah,
strongest concern leading into the race was that I would go out too hard. Uh,
yeah,
and so I ran the first 10 or 15 miles about 4 times
yeah,
before the race, and really wanted to dial in how that felt and
yeah,
what my heart rate should
yeah.
appropriately be and stuff.
Let's get into the race there, David.
Yeah.
Let's get into the race itself. So, pretty stacked field. Um, Ludovic Pomeray, who had the course record from the year before, Mathieu Blanchard, Jermaine Granger, Zach Miller, Gabe, who Gabe Joyce, bunch of other big names, some top women as well, Katie Scheid,
Yeah.
obviously. So how did you feel standing on the start line with this crew?
Oh, fine. Calm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Totally
So,
fine. Yeah. I
David,
tried to look into these people,
yeah. So I
and
was going
it
to,
was really hard for me for it to hold my attention. I
yeah.
started to like try to understand the racing styles and stuff, and it just like I'd rather be doing something else.
One of
So
the cool, David is not on any kind of social media. So we were chatting about some of these runners, and I think you didn't know who most of them were, which is probably a good thing. And
right.
certainly they didn't know who you were. They do
Yeah.
now, but yeah, they certainly didn't know who you were. So what was the strategy going out from the start? We talked about this a little bit, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I with your consultation set a heart rate ceiling
Yeah.
of I think we said 160 or 161 or something like that. And that was admittedly, I think you were advocating for like 155
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks prior, I had run every step of the way for the first 10 miles. And, that it was beyond what I intended to do in the race, but it felt pretty good and strong. And um, I was eager to have it a little higher. So that was my heart rate ceiling. And I felt like my superpower was this weird way of going uphill that I had figured out from the weighted ascents that we had been doing
Mhm.
throughout the season. And so really most of my race strategy was around that first 15 miles. And then from there, I would just trust my instincts and do whatever I could do. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, about when the steep climb started, maybe around 5 miles in, I found myself among the top like five or six or so, five or eight maybe. And I started doing my ascent movement and felt pretty good. I was like nose breathing, and I was passing folks, and that felt like a confirmation of my training. Um,
Mhm.
I was keeping an eye on my watch, and it was, I had to keep intentionally slowing down to not exceed that ceiling. A few times it bumped up higher to like 166, um, and then I'd back off. Um, and then I found myself with Ludo and Germain, um, and regardless of the heart rate ceiling, regardless of anything, I was not going to pass Ludo. That was my rule. Uh,
Yeah.
and he was kind of insisting that like Jermaine go in front of him for a bit, and then Jermaine peeled out to deal with some pack issue or something, and then he insisted I go in front of him, and I didn't want to, but he was insisting. So I was in front of him, and I intentionally slowed down because I was surely making a mistake by being in front of him, and um, I slowed down and he slowed down with me, and I missed a turn, and he was like, "Hey," and he had me go in front of him again. And then I got to that summit at about mile eight or so, 8 or 9, in front of Ludo. Just he was right behind me and in third place. And
Yeah.
I felt good. I was peaking peaking at their heart rates as I was ascending, and it looked to me, everyone's heart rate's different, but I felt and I felt pretty calm compared to them. And
Oh, you were looking at his heart rate. Yeah, on his
yeah,
watch.
his heart rate
Yeah.
monitor and Jermaine's, and
Yeah.
so I took the descent really, really easy because I didn't want to blow my quads out. And
Yeah.
the next descent was similar. I was doing my thing and staying pretty calm. And I was in this mix of these of Ludo and Germain for the first three ascents. And then in that third descent, I was deliberately going kind of slow, and Ludo just took off and shortly thereafter gained first, which he held for the rest of the race.
Yeah.
And me and Germain, we ran together. He was right behind me. I was deliberately slowing down. Um, and I started to feel as the heat was starting in the day, this onset of cramping. And
Yes.
I was very concerned about that, and my chief concern of the entire race. So I decisively um, uh, slowed down. Germain passed me, and I lost sight of him. And I ended up actually walking maybe a mile and a half uh, to the Sherman aid station. And I never cramped, but I was this body wide cramping was just below the surface, and I
Mhm.
thought maybe my race was over. Um, and I packed myself full of ice at that aid station, and Gabe and Katie caught up to me at the aid station. I embarked shortly before they did, and like did a mix of jogging and walking along the road to the Burroughs aid station. And in that time, Katie, I heard her gradually gaining on me, and I was committed to not getting cramps. And so it's just whoever's behind me, I'm just going to let them pass. And she
Yeah.
kindly got up to me, and I think the way she said it was the infamous Ayola, and uh, and it just so happened that a friend of mine texted me and said, "Hey, if you see someone named Katie, tell her hi for me. We went to college together." And so I said hi from Will Henriquez, and we chatted about this friend that she said she taught how to cook, and I'm not sure if it sounded like she didn't know that he then became a really serious cook and was even thinking about becoming a chef professionally and stuff. But we had a nice chat. And then she
Um,
left me in the dust, uh, and I continued to manage the threat of cramps. I had
yeah.
a plan of going slow for the first part of Handy's that has these big logs that you have to step up, and I knew it would be hard to have a running flow over them anyway. So I
Yeah.
enacted that plan, and then once I was beyond those, then it felt like my onset of cramping was behind me, and it was cooler, and so I started to charge uphill again, and
Mhm.
caught Katie again at the top of Handy's. This is maybe mile like 37 or 8. Um, and as I descended Handy's, I discovered that my quads were shot. Excruciating descent. I'm talking like tiptoeing downhill was excruciating, and I turned backwards for a bit because that seemed like it was easier on my quads, but that's just so slow. So I kind of just grit, and ran downhill, and my legs were just not happy, and it was at moments just like blindingly painful. Um,
Mhm.
so
Where do you
that
think that
helped.
came from?
What's that?
Where do you think that came from?
Well, I'm eager
If
to,
you got a little history.
yeah, oh yeah. So, uh, in September 2024, I jumped into a 100 miler, the I'm Tough 100. Some friends were doing it, and I was eager to have a nice extended weekend with them. Um, I'd recently had a baby, or
Mhm.
or rather, my wife had the baby, and I'm recent father, and I hardly trained for this. I jog because I like jogging a little bit to take our dogs out, but I did not train for this 100 miler. And I thought I would maybe jog with my friends or something, and showed up at the race, and the race director uh, really was enthusiastic about telling me about all the competitive athletes that were signed up to do this. And at the start line, I decided I'm going to run with these fast folks, and then I'll start going slow, and my friends will catch up to me. It was the stupidest plan, and I just went out hard. And by mile 22 in I'm Tough 2024, I started getting this body-wide cramps, and to release the cramps, my leg is locked, and I jump downhill to rip my leg into a bent position, and and once bent, I could kind of continue making my way, and I just kept doing that for the entire daylight, until mile 55. I just moved in this awkward position. Sometimes the cramps would just take over my whole body, and I'd fall on the ground just like seized up and wait to relax. And um, anyway, the nighttime came. My cramps released, but my muscles were still painful, and it was excruciating, just like it was in Hardrock, as I was just saying. And I finished that race at mile about 93. At the high point of the race, I peed and saw that it looked like thick Coca-Cola, and
Yeah.
I matched that to the kind of numbness that was happening in parts of my body, and my vision wasn't operating that well, which I knew these are symptoms of rhabdomyolysis. And so
Yeah.
figured I had that. And when I finished, I went straight to the hospital and and was in the hospital for 2 days and then more hospital visits here and there for the week after, and had a serious case of rhabdo. My CK level was 99,000. Um,
Yeah.
and so a pretty bad case of rhabdo. And I essentially didn't, or literally didn't run for 2 months after that, and started running again when I found out I got into Hardrock in December.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the history, and I felt that same
So
muscle.
yeah. So I think you had a milder case of
Yeah, yeah,
rhabdomyolysis during Hard Rock. Yeah. And I think you told me that you were peeing a little bit of Coca-Cola at one point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Every descent was freaking excruciating in Hardrock from Handies, about mile 38.
Yeah.
Every single descent was so painful, and usually that's my strength, and I just had to like
Yeah.
do these tiptoe kind of descents, and
Yeah. And
and
we know that
I
it's, we know from the medical literature that it's once you've had it once, it's certainly more likely to occur. But yeah,
too bad. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So you struggled through this,
yeah,
and you held your position. Um,
yeah. I was in
right.
fifth. When Katie passed me, I dropped to sixth. Then I passed her. I was in fifth for much of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. We'd kind of talked about the run up Camp Bird Road out of Ouray as maybe being,
Hmm.
I think I'd had you go check that out a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I figured that might be a kind of a crucial point in the race where if you it's a very runnable hill when you're fresh. Obviously, at that point in the race, it's way harder. But were you able to run that climb? Were you able to pass anybody on that climb? How did that go? Because we,
I yeah, I was pretty isolated and
yeah,
dealing with this muscle issue. And
right.
my plan indeed was to run that. And
Mm,
I felt like the muscular endurance framing of a lot of the training set me up well to run that. And I
yeah.
was looking forward to that. And that was part of my imagination of the race. Um, but then once doing it, I did run probably a little more than half of it. Um,
Okay.
but
Which is still incredibly impressive at that point.
but the muscle situation, I decided, you know, not because of how I was feeling physiologically per se, but I just decided to use that period to rest
Mhm.
a little bit, hoping it would recover my muscle situation. Um, because I knew that the climb up to Kroger's was pretty steep, and I wouldn't be resting my quads there. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the uphills were good.
The
Yeah.
uphills generally were generally good. You know, I had to change my form, shorten my stride
Yeah.
because of the muscle situation, but I felt pretty powerful nonetheless going uphill. Um, and then the descents were just so
And it,
painful. Yeah.
and I heard that those powerful legs drew the attention of somebody in one of the coffee shops one day.
Oh yeah. I until this season of training, I don't recall people commenting about my legs, but I didn't tell
Somebody
you
up
about
there
all of
said,
them. It might have been like 5 times out of the blue. Someone like leans out their car as they're driving by and they comment about my legs. And it wasn't like, hey, sexy legs. It was just like, dang, legs. So I think that was a testament to the training.
I think you told me somebody told you, hey, you're gonna win the Hard Rock 100 with legs like
Oh, at the Great Bear. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so at this point you're in about I think you're in fifth position because Zach Miller is ahead of you still.
Yeah.
So Zach Miller was one of the hotly tipped Americans for the overall win. But you caught obviously you caught Zach at some point.
Very, very gradually in the darkness.
Yeah.
I had my pacer Lauren with me at the time, and Lauren and I very, very gradually gained on his light. Uh,
Yes.
And I mean, it's this hilarious scene. Two people are going as fast as they can, and like the pacer's like jostling around, looking at the moon blooming flowers. As they
Yeah.
pass Zach Lauren, it's like, Zach, does that look like quivering blood to you? And there's this orange moonlight and the smoke-filled air reflecting off of these marshes in this alpine. And
Yeah,
and
and you felt like you were moving.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So whereabouts did you catch Zach?
Uh, the ascent coming out of uh
Was
I
it
guess
Grant?
coming out of Telluride, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, coming out of Telluride. So Oscars or Grand
Yeah,
Swamp?
up
Yeah.
and up
Yeah.
there, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then so that put you into fourth position.
Yeah.
Yeah, which you held all the way till the finish. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard from someone that I was about 45 or 50 minutes behind third,
Yeah.
Jermaine. And
So I think you made up some time at the end there.
yeah, I finished 18 minutes behind him. So I definitely
Yeah.
made up time.
Yes.
And that was largely due to my pacer pretty much convincing me that the finish line was there. And I'm talking, he's like, David, you'll never race again, ever in your life. This is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was yeah, like I keep saying, it was just so painful. But
Yeah.
I ran really fast the last 10 miles.
Yeah, you had a great your split down Putnam to the finish was really quite good. Was one of the quickest splits on the day. In fact, I think had the race been a little longer, you may have caught Jermaine. I saw a couple of videos of Jermaine finishing and you finishing and despite your legs, how they were feeling, you actually looked like you had great form and you were moving into that finish. Maybe you were just so desperate to be finished, I
It
guess.
was very pain. No, I was sad to finish.
Sad
Uh,
to finish.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
so much. I could have done another lap, or not because I was in any shape for it, but yeah, I wasn't looking forward to that finish line coming so quick.
Yeah.
And not so I could have passed anyone. It's just like, I don't know, give me more.
Yeah. And then you get to kiss the rock, and there's nothing really quite like it, is there?
I That grosses me out a little bit. I kind of glanced over and I was like, do I have to do this kiss thing? And someone's like waiting for the moment to stop
All right. Oh dear. Yeah. And and so the aftermath, you did not need to go to hospital for
Yeah,
the
I
cramps.
told Dale that I almost certainly had a rhabdo. Like I had peed, especially later on in the race, and it was definitely brown.
Yeah.
I'm not talking like dark yellow, but brown. And I showed my pacer, and he was like, "Yeah, that's brown."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but so I instead of eating protein like I normally would, I did not because that's a little bit taxing on the kidneys, and
Yeah.
ate a ton of or drank a ton of water. And they kept track of how I was peeing.
Yeah.
My partner, she's a nurse practitioner and kind of knows what's up with that kind of stuff. So I was trusting her recommendation. Were I to have gone to a hospital, it would have been a long haul.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I mean, when you think about hard rock as a whole, we've talked a little about the low points there with the cramps. What was the high? What were the high
Oh,
points or some of the high points of hard rock?
and the shimmering infinitude of little buttercup flowers on the northwest side of Handies.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and these, the full moon peeking over the cliffs going up Grant Swamp,
Yeah.
casting these bizarre shadows
Yeah.
that my pacer Lauren described as wings on our rib cage, which made a lot of sense at the time. Um, yeah, yeah, and just like, I mean, it just what a you know what a great day. There's nothing I would rather be doing. It was
Yeah.
enacting. I was not distracted at all. I was doing exactly what I like. If my mind wandered, it wandered to there. Like, uh, so it was a good day. Yeah,
Yeah. Such a beautiful course. And how long did it take you to get into hard rock? How many years have you been trying?
about a decade.
Decade. Yeah. Yeah.
There
Yeah,
was a year where I messed up the registration,
yeah,
uh, and and then 2 years where the race was canceled. So,
yeah. So I think I told you this, David, but I was also running a race that very same day. I was doing the
yeah.
Beaver 100 in Montana, Idaho, and Montana and Idaho. And we actually didn't have any cell service for most of the day. And I knew you were kind of running in fifth or sixth when I last checked. And anyway, I came into this aid station at a pass, and my wife had driven around, and she got some cell service, and she checked the results, and of course, you'd finished. So I come into this aid station. I was feeling pretty terrible actually at this point, and Sarah, my wife, she goes, David finished fourth. He was fourth. And boy, all my pay, I was so happy for you. And you know what? All of a sudden, I didn't care at all about my own race. I was so happy for you, David. It was really, really well deserved. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah,
So, yeah. It was funny. I was running along with another guy earlier in the race. So it's night, it's in the dark, early hours, and we're running along. And he said, "Oh, have you been following Hardrock?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he goes, "Oh." He goes, "Is this guy Ayala is doing really well?" So, so we got talking about it, and I
that's
was
fun.
coaching you. And anyway, he was equally as pumped. We high-fived going up the hill once we got the results. So it was kind of a neat moment. Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, that's sweet. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, David, I mean, I feel like there's all kinds of other stuff we could go into here. We could talk about your nutrition because we changed that. You adopted a bit more of a high carb approach. You talked to a nutritionist, sports nutritionist about
Hmm.
one of my other clients, actually, Julie. You talked to her about nutrition and hydration, and you nailed the hydration and fueling on the
Yeah,
right. I don't think you had
that
any
was perfect. I
stomach.
didn't vary my fueling plan at all, and
Yeah,
I never felt nauseous. It
yeah.
was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I,
Mhm.
I feel like we could keep going, but
Right.
conscious of time. So probably
Mhm.
time to wrap up. I mean,
Yeah.
I really can't thank you enough for joining us today. And again, congrats on an incredible day in the San Juans. Hopefully everybody enjoyed listening to your tales, your stories.
Yeah.
You're an incredibly insightful and thoughtful guy. You're a delight to listen to. So I really
Yeah. Well,
appreciate
appreciate it. Was all enabled through you, Andy. Thank you.
Ha.
Yeah.
Take care. Till the next
Okay.
one.
Okay.